What's up, spooky buttercups? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is the top 10 most disturbing horror novels you need to read part 2. I will link the first part down in the description box below. There's not really a connection between part 1 and part 2, and I'm just kind of sort of going with all of the parts until I somehow run out of disturbing books to recommend, which isn't going to happen. So we'll just keep on going for a long time. These are some short stories, but mainly novels that disturbed me so much that I'm recommending them to you out of love. Kind of. Love and amusement. And by the way, none of these are in particular order. So the first one is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Now, I read this at the end of August, a little bit into September 2024, and it was a fantastic start to spooky season because I usually read during the evenings, 9 times out of 10 in bed. And yes, we have some branches that like to scratch the window and it is the season of rain where I am, so the vibe was on point. Now, if you don't somehow know about The Haunting of Hill House, it was turned into a limited series on Netflix by Mike Flanagan. I watched that first and then read the book, but there's kind of sort of no connection. There are similar names and ideas, but it's pretty different from the book, so I suggest reading the book. You're not going to get the same if you watched the TV show, but it's great on its own. I'm not dissing Mike Flanagan. I love that. That was the first ever introduction for me to Mike. The Haunting of Hill House book version, we follow 4 adults that are visiting a haunted mansion on a hill. Wow, what a title, right? And they're trying to see if it's actually haunted or not, and they're staying overnight. And, you know, things get a little spooky. Actually, the great part of it is psychological. And we follow this one particular woman most, Eleanor, and she's not all there, and you could already tell in the beginning that she's not all there, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, because hello, it's a horror. Like, some people are just gonna be messed up, or most of the characters are gonna be messed up, kind of why they're in the position that they're in most of the time. Not every time. I comprende that it's not every single time, but there's a lot of characters that are not all there, and Eleanor, she's not all there, and it's kind of, at least it was clear to me that there's something weird going on with her. And then there's another woman that is really similar to her, and that was one of my problems with the book, why I gave it 4 stars instead of 5. Theodora and Eleanor, like, for a long time, basically the same, and you have to reread to see who is who. I don't know if Shirley Jackson did that on purpose or not. But by halfway through the novel, I was creeped out. And that's hard to do. Not in like, oh my gosh, I'm scared, but like creeped out. There is a difference. And, you know, by the end, I was like, ooh, yeah, that's not good. I'm going to be thinking about that for a long time. The first paragraph of The Haunting of Hill House is superb. Number 2, Full Brutal by Kristopher, Triana. This is a standalone splatterpunk. I am going to say it was one of the most brutal, full brutal, okay, most brutal splatterpunk novel I've read. I read that in a group for a book club, and we were all like, damn. Because basically it's a psychopathic cheerleader that she's been holding in things for quite some time, and she let looses all those things. And I'm not gonna say much because basically I would spoil everything else, but that would be content warnings. You need to look into those content warnings because, yeah. Though, to say, I do have OCD. I do pick at hair. I don't pick at my skin, but I pick at hair. And so the main character picks at her skin and her nails. And so I was starting to do that. I was also, when reading this book, I was going through a really stressful time with medical issues. So I was already at a stress level that I'm not usually at. And yeah, so I was picking my fucking eyebrow as I was reading. And then I was like, girl, what the stop. And it just happened that it was during those times when she's talking about skin picking or picking her nails. I'm like, God, you are so stupid. Luckily, my eyebrow is now fully filled in, but there was like a little spot in a particular place on my right eyebrow that was a little bare. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to pay money to get my eyebrows waxed because of nonsense. I didn't have to, luckily, because my eyebrows fill in fast. So it wasn't necessarily the book itself that was making me so stressed out. It was that I was stressed out, and she is a picker, and therefore, because I was stressed out and I'm a picker and I'm reading her picking, I was unconsciously picking until I caught myself. So be aware of that as well. Number 3, The Veldt by Ray Bradbury. This is the first, at least in my copy, the first short story in The Illustrated Man, which is an anthology of many of Ray's short stories. And that was my favorite one out of the bunch because we follow a family of 4, mom, dad, daughter, and son, and they are in the future with a very, very smart house. And mom and dad have not told their children no, like, ever. So, but the technology is so advanced at this point where it's like a projection, but you're kind of in the projection. And there's just too much technology where none of them, they are not satisfied with their lives because the technology has just taken over and it does everything for them, including like tying their shoes. Okay. So what's the purpose of life if robots and, AI does everything, including play with you and takes you on a safari or to Paris? Like, your life afterwards, after you get out of that playroom, you're just like, eh. The parents realize that when their children have a conniption because, something. And that's when things go downhill. Number 4, Bunny by Mona Awad. Now, I did a review on this, so I'm not going to go in depth whatsoever also because we have other books, right? But if you want to listen to more in-depth conversation about Bunny and the ins and outs and my theories, you can check out my book review. But I felt high as hell for most of that book, just purely on the writing style and how Mona wrote out the plot and the character development and all that stuff, which is absolutely amazing. And it is very uncomfortable, and I did not like it whatsoever, but like I was really intrigued and I kept going. I had to keep going. But then I was like, What's going on? It messed me up for a couple days after. And you can clearly see that in my video. Number 5, Gone to See the Riverman by Kristopher Triana. Well. I hate the main character and I wanted her to die. And that could be in and of itself disturbing. But if you read the book, you'd understand. I also read this with a group for a book club, Messed Up Book Club, and yeah, we all really enjoyed this one. It really is not like splatterpunk. No, it's kind of slow, even though it's a short book. It's a build up, and there are creepy things that happen, disturbing things, horrible things, and then you get to, you know, the bloody, disgusting parts, and you're just like, I'm all in, but I don't like that I'm all in, but I'm intrigued in what's going on. And can this main character just die already because she's a piece of crap? Thank you so much. And you know, I was pretty satisfied. Not completely, but I was pretty satisfied by the end. Number 6, Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a novella, and it follows a young boy that has lost his father, and he's grappling with that, and he's possibly seen the ghost of his father. Now, I gave this 4 stars because the end was not clear, and it's very open-ended, like maybe too open-ended. So you could either go with the world does have ghosts and the young boy is seeing the ghost of his father and everything that comes with it, or the boy's hallucinating because he is really, really deep in grief and other, you know, mental illnesses, and so he really needs help. I mean, you know, both ways he needs help because he's in a deep grieving process. He's very much struggling. I think maybe the point from Stephen Graham Jones is to keep it so open-ended that you're really thinking about it, and I'm still thinking about it. I can't figure it out. I don't think anyone can figure out with 100% certainty if there are ghosts or if there are not ghosts in this universe. So that leaves me very unsettled. Number 7, Slewfoot by Brahm. I read this last year for Halloween season, and perfection, 5 stars. The artwork, fantastic. And the story, also fantastic. I mean, hello, Demon Daddy. And that's not the messed up part. The messed up part is that it is a tale of revenge and rage. And this is possibly what happens when you treat people like absolute shit. Maybe don't do that. Maybe don't do that, because maybe you get Demon Daddy and, you know, the main character team up, and you'll regret that you tried to hang her as a witch. Number 8, A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. I did not rate this book because it's a classic, and I just don't usually rate classics because they're in their own world, and I usually have like 50% problem, 50% I liked it, and that's not the best thing. But it's my trend with classics, so I don't usually rate it. I actually think it's more disturbing in people's reactions and people missing that Alex is a psychopath and he doesn't care. He does what he does because he likes it. Maybe I'm missing some things of people's thought processes or something, because Alex and his droogs and all the other, you know, young criminals walking around this dystopian after, like, I'm thinking another world war, maybe it's like nuclear war, and so like everything's just gone to crap, and so an authoritarian government has taken over, and they have a youth criminal problem, which, okay, there is a difference between stealing candy bars and graffiti and getting into fights versus murder and almost all of the bark, except arson, crimes. Now, bark is B-A-A-R-K. Alex and his droogs does almost all of them except arson on top of murder. So we're past the point of it's just because he's a young boy. No, he's a psychopath and he's a criminal who needs to be locked up forever. Now, because like the whole concept of should the government be in charge of that, who else would be, especially in England, because England doesn't have like states, right? But then it's also like about talking about propaganda and free will, good versus evil, what happens during a authoritarian state, and how do they use people, and like 5 other different themes. I comprende. But what disturbs me the most is that they're saying that this is just what youths do, and it's different than that. You could say that we have a criminal problem and they happen to be youth, but youth rebellion is not bark, crimes, and murder. Okay? It's completely different. So the whole concept of rehabilitation, and this might be a hot topic, you're not going to fix Alex or anyone that does basically all of those crimes minus arson. Okay. Different makeup. Psychopath, narcissist, sociopath. Those are different, and you can't cure that. But they do try, and that's the point of this book, and the part of the point of this book. There are many points. Maybe there are too many points where I'm just like, y'all, what are we doing here? But one of the points of the book's by like the middle, they're trying to use psychology, and brainwashing, and Pavlov, which it's not really gonna work, but they're trying to do this, and they do kind of succeed in a way, but then they don't, because they're not getting rid of the psychopath. You have to completely change someone's brain makeup. You can't just like talk it out, and you can't brainwash that out. It's that person, right? So I feel like that's the most messed up part. We already know about how horrible authoritarian governments are. Okay, the slang in here is Russian based, and then there's also hints of World War II and Hitler, and how the authoritarian government is using the USSR and Nazi propaganda techniques, and then MK Ultra, that's the United States, MK Ultra, Anthony writing in ideas and techniques about MK Ultra trying to fix Alex. So there's a lot of history involved. I'm not going too deep into it because we're already quite some time in, and I have 2 other books, but I think it's more disturbing that I don't like the psychology and the neuroscience. It's like, boop, we don't care about that. Let's talk about stuff that we think, that we feel is good, but it's not based in fact. So this whole thing is just like I'm just sitting here going, it's not gonna work. So like, okay, it's okay. Maybe that's the point, and that could be the point, because are you good if you're forced to be good? That's a whole philosophical, theological question. We're not going to get into that, but in a way, no, but in another way, yes, for everyone else's sake, because Alex is doing these things with his friends to other people over and over and over again. At a certain point, you need to take Alex and people like him off the streets for a very long time. But they don't do that. They try other things. But you could just keep them in prison for the rest of their life. Because the psychopath is not going to change. Alex is not going to change. He's not. What psychopath that has done all of the bar crimes and murder, minus arson, goes, oh yeah, I want a family now, and I'm gonna work at a cubicle job 9 to 5. I'm totally into it. And that's also why I don't like the final chapter. And I think the American publisher did actually get that one right. But Anthony, in the introduction of the copy that I have, he rails hard against the movie and the American publisher. But, okay. Moving on to number 9. Hashtag Thigh Gap by Chandler and Morrison. Now, this is about eating disorders. I am going to briefly put up the book cover, but only for a few seconds, because this is actually very triggering for those that have eating disorders or developing an eating disorder. Really go into this book in particular knowing the content warnings. As you can see, the main character, she's a model. She wants to be skinny. In the beginning, she does have a legit eating disorder. And so she's really skinny. But she wants to look like that. That's just beyond really skinny. That is, you're about to die. The main character does not think that she can be beautiful unless she looks like a skeleton. So we're going through the life of this main character and her really struggling, and it doesn't turn out great. I mean, because it's a horror novel, but yeah, there is no hope. So remember that going in. Number 10, this is going to be controversial, but I don't care. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Why is this poem involved, Nicole? Are you serious? Look, that's why I did put it at number 10, but hear me out. I was listening to the Kristopher Lee spoken word on YouTube a couple years ago. Oh my God. And it was dark out, it was rainy, and the wind was going, okay? I don't know, maybe like a couple minutes in, it was perfect timing too. There was just like this certain point in the poem that just creeped me out, and I don't even remember it, which is so funny. You know, human memory is weird, but you know, I digress. There was a certain point that creeped me out, and at that exact moment, the rain picked up and the branches on the tree near my window just went whack, and I'm like, ah! And I freaked out. And it's like, if I was listening to it at like 12 p.m. on a summer sunny day, it wouldn't have freaked me out. But because the human mind is so stupid and smart at the same time, I now think of that second instant when I'm listening to or anyone brings up the Raven. So I think it's really interesting when the mind takes over in a way, and the thing that you're interacting with might not even be that disturbing. Maybe it's creepy, maybe it's unsettling, but then just something happens around you, or it's a trigger in your brain for something else, and now it's just disturbing. Thank you so much for watching part 2 of the top 10 most disturbing horror novels you need to read. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great spooky day. Bye!